In 1985, a hunter walking through Bear Brook State Park in Allenstown, New Hampshire, stumbled onto something that would haunt investigators for the next 40 years. Tucked behind a cluster of trees, half buried in leaves and dirt, sat a rusted 55-gallon steel drum, the kind you'd find in any industrial yard, the kind nobody looks twice at. But when police pried open the lid, they found something no one was prepared for. Inside were the remains of two people, a woman, estimated to be in her mid-20s, and a young girl, no older than 6. They had been dead for years. No identification, no missing persons report that matched, no witnesses, no leads. For 15 years, the woman and the girl in the barrel remained nameless, two people erased from existence so completely that nobody even knew to look for them. The case went cold, files gathered dust, and Bear Brook kept it secret. Until the year 2000, during a routine search of the area, investigators decided to expand the perimeter around the original barrel. 100 yards away, behind a tree line that had grown thicker in the decade and a half since the first discovery, they found a second barrel. Same type, same rusted steel, same horrible contents. Inside were 2 more children, both girls. One was approximately 4 years old, the other was an infant, estimated at less than 2 years of age. 4 bodies, 2 barrels, 1 small patch of forest in rural New Hampshire, and not a single name for any of them. The discovery of the second barrel changed everything. This was no longer a random act of violence. This was deliberate, calculated. Someone had used this quiet stretch of State Park as a dumping ground, and they had returned to do it again. Investigators began working the case from every angle. Forensic analysis suggested all 4 victims had died around the same time, likely in the late 1970s or early 1980s. The woman and the older girl appeared to be related. But without dental records, fingerprints, or DNA matches in any existing database, identification seemed impossible. Then a name surfaced, not one of the victims, the suspect. In 2002, investigators linked the barrels to a man who had lived in the area under the name Bob Evans. He'd rented a trailer near Bear Brook in the early 1980s. Neighbors remembered him as quiet, kept to himself, moved frequently. But when detectives ran the name through federal databases, they hit a wall. Bob Evans didn't exist. The social security number was fabricated. The identity was a shell. Over the next several years, investigators peeled back layer after layer of false identities. Bob Evans had also been Larry Vanner, Curtis Kimball, and at least 7 other names. Each identity had a lifespan of a few years before being discarded, like the barrels in the woods. He married women, had children, moved states, and vanished, leaving behind confusion and unanswered questions wherever he went. His real name, they finally determined, was Terry Peder Rasmussen. Born in 1943, a drifter with a criminal record stretching across multiple states, a man who had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. But by the time investigators confirmed his identity, Rasmussen was already dead. He had died in prison in 2010, serving time for the murder of another woman, Yoon Soon Jun, whose body he had stored in a plastic container in his California home. He took the identities of his Bear Brook victims to the grave. For 7 more years, the 4 victims remained nameless. Then in 2017, genetic genealogy changed the game. A new discipline had emerged at the intersection of DNA analysis and public genealogy databases. Investigators submitted DNA from the Bear Brook victims to a team of forensic genealogists, including Barbara Ray Venter, the same scientist who would later help identify the Golden State Killer. By cross-referencing DNA profiles with genealogy records, they built family trees backward from distant relatives until the branches converged. In January 2019, they had their answer. The woman in the first barrel was Marlice Elizabeth Honeychurch, born in 1957 in Connecticut. The older girl was her daughter, Marie Elizabeth Vaughn, born in 1971. The infant in the second barrel was Sarah Lynn McWaters, Marlice's younger daughter, born in 1977. A mother and 2 of her children, last seen alive in late 1978. 3 of the 4 victims now had names, but the 4th, the little girl estimated to be between 2 and 4 years old, remained a mystery. Investigators could not link her DNA to the Honeychurch family. She was not Marlice's child. She was someone else's daughter, placed in that barrel alongside people she may never have known in life. For 6 more years, the identity of the middle child consumed investigators. Hundreds of DNA comparisons, thousands of genealogical records. Every lead seemed to curve back on itself. Then, in September 2025, 40 years after her body was first discovered, the middle child was finally identified. Her name was Rhea Rasmussen. She was the biological daughter of Terry Peder Rasmussen himself. The killer had murdered his own child and placed her in a barrel alongside his other victims. Rhea's mother was a woman named Pepper Reed. She and Rasmussen had been in a relationship in the late 1970s. After Rhea's identification, investigators went looking for Pepper Reed. They have not found her. She has not been seen or heard from since approximately 1979. No death certificate, no records of any kind. Just silence. The implications are as heavy as the barrels themselves. Terry Peder Rasmussen likely killed at least 5 people, possibly more. He operated across state lines, under stolen identities, for decades. He was never a suspect in the Bear Brook murders during his lifetime. He died in prison for a different crime, a convicted killer whose worst secrets were still buried in the woods. The Bear Brook case is now regarded as one of the most significant breakthroughs in forensic genealogy. It demonstrated that even the coldest cases, victims with no names, no records, no one searching for them, could be solved through the science of DNA and the patience of investigators who refused to let 4 people remain forgotten. But it also revealed something deeply unsettling about how easily people can vanish. Marlies Honeychurch was a young mother with a family, a history, a life, and for 40 years no one connected her disappearance to the barrels in Bear Brook. The system that was supposed to notice when people go missing simply didn't notice. Today, the empty frames of this case still hang. Pepper Reed has never been found. Investigators believe she may be another victim of Terry Rasmussen, buried somewhere along the trail of false identities he left across America. If she is, her barrel hasn't been discovered yet. 4 people were found in Bear Brook, but the real number may be higher, and the woods aren't done talking.